See you.
All right.
Oops. Are you,
I might be beating you to the
you're
punch.
still doing it a little bit, okay.
I'll stop. You can do it.
Looks like your wife is coming on board, Ray.
Oh, well, there you go. There's no pressure there, right? Well, we can kind of start with catching up with everybody from the last month while we wait for the last folks to come in. I'm excited tonight. We've got a couple of great speakers. Rebecca's going to do a short presentation about some new work of hers. And my dear friend Susan DeWitt's going to be our main presenter. And she's got, I don't know, 200. How many slides do you have for Susan?
Quite a few.
Yeah. Last I heard,
Yeah,
it was
200 and something, yeah.
so lots to see there. So that'll be super great.
Yeah.
I see lots of visitors and guests, including a few from out of town. So welcome you all and thank you for being here. We do this slightly embarrassing thing where I make you introduce yourself if you're a guest or new to the group. So if anybody's here who's just joining to watch tonight, if you wouldn't mind letting me know who you are and just introduce yourself, that'd be great. No.
Hi, I'm Kathy Graham. I'm Becky's cousin here in Omaha, Nebraska.
Thank you, Kathy, for
Kathy.
stepping up and coming over.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Nice to see you all.
This is Lonnie Smart. I think I introduced myself last week or last month was the first time, so I made it back
Nice. Welcome back.
from Yakima.
Now's the time to join. It's the price is reduced for the rest of the year. So
Mhm.
you can get on for $25 for the rest of the year. So think about doing that.
I have to do that.
Anybody else visiting tonight?
Yeah, I'm Kathleen McNamara. I'm your wife.
Good friend of Susan. You wouldn't come just for me, I don't think.
No, I'm here for Susan and Rebecca.
Thank you. Way to go, Kathleen.
Uh,
I'm Anita Wilson, and I'm a good friend of Susan's and big admirer of her work and of all of your work. And I'm from Vancouver.
Welcome. I saw your name. I thought that might be you.
Vancouver, BC.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. The other Vancouver.
Yeah,
The
you have
other
to say
Vancouver.
that. Well, welcome, Anita. That's great.
Thank you, Susan, and everybody.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. How about announcements? I know that a few of you have got some stuff going on. Susan Turner, where's she? She's got something happening right now.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, there's an article in Black and White magazine about me, a feature article. It's in the October issue, which came out last week, which surprised me no end. But anyway, it's good to have an article in such a magazine.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
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 How'd you arrange that?
I didn't. The writer, David Best, saw my show in Sacramento, and he and the editor contacted me a few months ago.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Is that an interview, Susan?
There was a long interview by phone, and then quite a process of getting it written.
Okay, nice. Well, send me some stuff about that, Susan, and I'll post it on Instagram.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, okay.
Is that
Okay.
still, that's published every other month, right? Is that on?
Every other month, but I was expecting that the October issue would come out in late September. So this was a surprise.
Do you think it's on the stands now or just out to the subscribers?
I wrote the editor, Dean Brierly, and he said it should be on the stands the 26th.
Cool.
And he didn't explain why, you know, what the logic is of calling it October and putting it out in July. So I didn't press for that because I figured this isn't going to be happening all the time anyway.
Yeah, it's a test probably.
Yeah, right.
Pay attention. Anybody else have anything they'd like to tell us about that they're up to this month?
I got something.
Let's hear it.
I got this today. It's a textbook called The Visual Arts of Africa. And I've got 13 images in it. And it's by the Oxford Press.
Nice.
So that was nice.
Is that a periodical, Evan?
No, it's a textbook.
Oh, it's a
So,
textbook. You said that. Yeah.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
It is exciting.
Send me your stuff too, Evan.
Are the photographs in there, you documenting the artist? Or are you considered an African photographer with your artwork?
I like the sound of that last one, Susan.
Yeah, okay, you like the sound, but what's the reality?
The reality is there were several events that I recorded that were quite unique.
Okay.
And one of them actually led to the institution or the creation of the Smithsonian African Arts Museum.
Wonderful.
And so this is part of that, and also part of the idea that, there are lots of different arts throughout Africa, and I had images from quite a few of them that are part of that, but mostly they're from an area called Com in Cameroon.
Mhm.
And it's kind of hard to get information from there now because of the Civil War. But I was happy to see that these came through.
It'd be nice to have a way to access that book. If the information maybe if you send it to Pat, send enough information so that one can look it up on Amazon or something.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can do that.
absolutely.
Where was it
Congratulations. That's cool.
published?
Yeah, thanks.
Where was it published?
It says Oxford University
sorry.
Press.
Okay, cool. So
I
it
have-
would be available.
It's available, but I tell you, it's a textbook, and you know what that means.
It's a
Yeah.
It's not.
Pricey.
It's not cheap. It's
Yeah.
$85 for that.
Yeah.
And there'll be a test at the end of the month.
That's
Yeah.
right. All right. Thank you, Evan.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Well, mine's not really an announcement of that caliber, but I just wanted to throw it out there since it's already July and we only have, half a year left to go. But I just wanted to let everybody know that I'm planning on stepping down from the Instagram czar position in January 2023. So I'm putting a feeler out right now for anybody who wants to take the baton and run with it. So that would begin in January. So I would coach you and help you as much as I can. And it's kind of a fun gig and you could put your own stamp on it. I think it's time for some fresh blood in that position. So just a feeler out there to let you think about it. And anybody who wants to become the new Instagram czar or czarina, then let us know.
Yeah, so Pat, thanks for posting the pictures up on the website.
Yeah, Pat.
Yeah, I'll probably step away from the artist exhibitions too. My husband is retiring next March, so that's the main reason we're starting our plans. So
Pat, you've done such a great job of reaching out to people and, like
Thank you,
almost
Jonas.
prying information and images out of people. You've done a great job. So, hats off to you.
oh, thank you, Jonas. That's very kind. I'll still be around for the next 5 months, so I hope somebody will be willing because it's kind of a fun thing to put your stamp on our Instagram page, kind of our face on Instagram.
Everybody's suddenly muted, Pat. I'm not sure.
Everybody's muted.
Everybody suddenly muted themselves because I don't think there's too many volunteers yet.
Oh,
But by January,
I think that's going to be put on their thinking caps about that one.
highly contested. the last PPF announcement is that the Monday, August 1st is the first Monday, and that'll be our next print share down at the Multnomah Art Center. So if you've got some prints, we meet at 6 o'clock for a couple hours of looking at prints and talking about work. And you're welcome to come, even if you don't have prints, you can just come and join the conversation. So think about that. Next, we're going to look at the monthly challenge slideshow. This month it's Still Lifes. And I encourage all of you to enter these things each month because it's a great way to get your work out in front of the meeting, in front of everybody, and have them have a look at it and get you a chance to show your work without having to talk, which is always kind of a plus. So, and there's no music again. Like I said, can't find any unlicensed music. So here we go. I'm going to do that now.
Hmm. Wow.
Maybe you could mute everybody for this, Ray, that food is distracting.
Recording in progress.
Nice.
Thank you, everybody that submitted.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Great. Thank you again for everybody to everybody who submitted. Rebecca, you're up. Are you ready to go? Rebecca's going to give a short presentation of some of her new work, and she's asked that everybody ask questions at the end of her presentation. And I'm going to suggest she shares her screen, and maybe until you're ready to ask questions, maybe you could all mute. I don't know if I haven't figured out how to mute you all myself. So.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, and I think if you use
Yes.
your green dot, it'll go full screen. Oh, maybe that's me. Sorry. No worries. Sorry.
Okay, okay. Let me actually. Well, hello, everyone. It's so nice to be a part of this tonight, and thank you for joining us. And Kathy, I give a shout out for you for coming in from Omaha. I appreciate that. Tell the family hello. My name is Rebecca Akporai, and I'm going to be giving you a short presentation tonight. First, I'd like to thank Ray and Pat for this opportunity. Tonight, I'll be showing you work from my Witt series, which is about the time I spent in the Middle East. I have prepared a slideshow for you, and after it's over, I'll be glad to go over images that might have intrigued you, or if you have any questions, technical or otherwise. In 2014, my husband took a job in Doha, Qatar. I spent the next 2 years traveling and living in Doha and in Portland. This time period was shortly after the Arab Spring, of pro-democratic uprisings that spread throughout the Middle East. This period is sometimes called the social media revolution due to the influence of Twitter and Facebook and other online platforms, and what the effect that these platforms had on how protesters could organize and how they could get their message out about what was happening to the world. In response to this Arab Spring, when I first arrived in Doha, there was a proclamation made by the ruling family, the Al Thani family, all photography of state-owned buildings, the Qatari people, and most importantly, the workers were banned. These workers, many brought in from Iran, Yemen, and Pakistan, had grueling and dangerous working conditions. One of the places I felt most at ease was at the local souk. It was a marketplace that was like a warren of small shops. My favorite time to go was in the afternoon when it was closed, and I'd walk along these abandoned hallways. But when I heard loud Arabic male voices, I would turn around and try to find my way back out to the streets. Wow. Sometimes in the evenings, there would be cultural festivals and celebrations. I would take photos of these with my camera on its strap, hidden by the scarf that I would wear to hide it. I never brought the camera up to my eye. Held within this gigantic souk were many specific souks. For example, the falcon souk, where these highly prized birds were bought and sold. There was a spice souk where dried fish and other delicacies were sold. There was a gold souk where a Yemeni man is stringing a pearl necklace for me. And at the last night at the souk, when I knew I was not going to return to Qatar, I was brave enough to take photos of Iranian workers that would push wheelbarrows loaded with purchases to the awaiting cars. One of my favorite places was the Arabian souk, where we always tried to visit around feeding time. These spirited horses would spin and whinny and rear up in anticipation. Within their tiny stalls, they put on quite a show. Islam is the official religion in Qatar, and it's the basis for their law. For Muslims, punishments can include lashings and stonings for adultery and alcohol consumption. The charge for homosexuality can result in the death penalty. Profanity can result in 7 years in prison. The testimony of a woman is counted 1/2 of a man's, and polygamy and marrying relatives is permitted. In 2014, there was a modesty campaign that was launched to remind tourists of the country's restrictive dress code. Female tourists were not advised to wear leggings, sleeveless dresses, or tight clothing. Flyers stating this were handed out at the airport and at the shopping malls. Now, next, we're going to take a journey out into the desert with this next group of images. You'll see dune bashing, a sunrise on the Persian Gulf and desert sands. And at the end, you'll see several self-portraits taken while I was wearing the traditional abaya, the required dress for Qatari women outside of their homes. For me, these images illustrate how I felt as a woman living in a Muslim country.
أشهد أن لا إلا الله أشهد أن لا إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح
That's the end of my show. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
My first question is Giannis, and it's like, how did you deal with languages, or was that an issue for you?
Well, Arabic is the primary language. Because they brought so many workers in that worked both in industry, the pipelines, and other areas, English was quite common language and how a lot of people would communicate. However, that being said, most of the people, even expats that looked like me, didn't speak English. So it was definitely a challenge. And a lot of times I didn't have a clue what people were saying, so.
Becky, Rebecca, okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, please.
Becky, I was just going to say, I think the photographs are wonderful. What I find amazing is that you were able to take these without putting the camera up to your eye. It's really, really quite amazing.
Well, thank you. And I do shoot with a digital camera, but I do not take a lot of photographs just because my workflow is a very time intensive one. And I just don't like to go through a lot of photographs. So I'm pretty selective about what I take.
Sure.
And the other thing is the drawback to the camera that I had, which was one of the first Sony AR full mirrorless cameras, was the fact it made a loud click. And so when I was trying to hide it, I also wanted to be in noisy kind of situations so you wouldn't hear it click. For example, one day when I was shooting at the souk down one of the empty hallways, there was a Qatari man that was walking out of one of the stalls. He had gone, I imagine, to collect his money. And as he walked out, my camera clicked. And he looked at me right away and he goes, "You didn't take a photo of me?" And I said, "Oh no, sir, never." Of course I did, but so even the click of my camera, I think I tried to disguise at certain times. So.
Rebecca, I'm kind of, again, this is Giannis. I'm kind of curious, like, what's your takeaway from like your experience there, like say in 140 characters or less?
Sure.
Like, what did you walk away with?
My personal, so this last image, the one that's on the screen right now, is really sums up to me my whole experience while I was in Qatar. And in fact, I'm going back to this series and being drawn to it because I find as I was trying to figure out what was happening in Qatar, I'm pretty much in the same place as I'm trying to figure out the world today. The feeling of isolation, the feeling of things being alien and not quite recognizable anymore. And the takeaway also from this image and wearing the abaya is I felt it made me disappear. And when you look at the image, it's a void. It's just a black void. You don't see texture, you just see shape. And so I've tried to incorporate that into an ongoing series that I'm doing back here at the States called Black Makes Me Disappear. And it's taking this concept of what black does, to images and and how it can distort shapes and become a two-dimensional shape and not a three-dimensional one.
I always had the impression that Qatar was a little different from Saudi Arabia, but it sounds like it's pretty much the same.
Well, so there's two answers to that, because there's two levels to Qatar. The World Cup's going to be there. You're going to, if you're a soccer fan, you're going to be watching a lot about Qatar this fall. And there is a very urban, very wealthy nation. They get their resources, natural oil or natural gas. It's one of the wealthiest nations in the country. And so when you go there, the city life is bustling. It looks like any city, and it could be Las Vegas. But when you peel it back and look at what's going on within the country, which is hard to do because you have to understand there's no free press there. There are no workers' rights. There is for example, at Christmas holidays, some of the buildings that would house expats had Christmas trees up and things like that. But then they decided they were going to have it a national holiday. And so the next weekend, everything had to come down, and it can turn that quickly. And they're also a very threatened country. They're a very small country. And they really feel that Saudi is is granting them their freedom for now, but that if they wanted to come in and take over the natural resources, they would be able to do it without much problem. So
interesting.
Yeah, Rebecca, you and I have talked about this. I lived in Saudi Arabia from 85 to 88 teaching English there.
Yeah.
And interesting that you bring that up, Ross, because in 1985 to 88, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia was considered the most conservative of all the Muslim cities. Well, Saudi Arabia of all the countries, but Riyadh in particular, very conservative. And when I hear Rebecca's stories about modern day Qatar, I just think, wow, nothing has changed. It's just, and right now for women in particular, women are still fighting to get even basic rights like driving. I think maybe some of them have just been allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia. I don't know about Qatar, but yeah, so the situation of the woman, and I admire Rebecca so much for getting out with her camera and defying that aspect and getting some work. But I knew it was a risk for her, and but you did it with such, such sympathy for the culture. You didn't, these were not exploitative at all. So I really loved the photographs you took when you were there, given the restrictions, but you still were very sensitive to the culture, which I admire you for that.
well, I thank you, Pat. And the ones that are in the desert meant a lot to me in the way that they were I could actually frame them and set them up the way that I wanted to. When all the ones previous to this, it was good fortune that would smile upon me to be able to get them. But these were very deliberate, and it was nice to be able to shoot that way.
Yes.
and not just be in haste. So yeah.
So interesting.
There were, it appears, well, there were obviously many challenges to living in Qatar, but I'm wondering, what, if anything, did you find that was admirable that, in the culture of that? What did you like? Or
Sure. Well, I didn't really, honestly, as an expat, we were really held out as strangers, especially as expats from the United States. So my husband, where he worked, he worked with Qatari people, and I knew them through his work. But on my own, I never met with any or talked to any. For example, if you went to a bathroom, which I think when you travel, bathrooms are always kind of interesting things anyway. But there'd be a long line, and they'd have several different stalls. They'd have one that was just a hole in the floor at one end, and at the other end, it had the scented fragrance things that would go on. And you would stand in line, but if there was a Qatari woman that had to go to the bathroom, they cut in line for everyone, and you had to stand back. And so there was many things I loved about the trip. I loved about the culture of all the different cultures getting together, and all the people that we met that were from all over the world. And when we would share meals with them, it would be so fantastic, and the feeling that we were all here. And it was just, you know, it was a lot of excitement about what was being built. It was a hospital for women and children, and there was a lot of enthusiasm. And I loved that, and I loved that aspect of it. But that's not directly the Qatar. I didn't ever get invited in where I could really address my relationship, my personal relationship with the Qatarian culture.
Thank you.
Yeah, when I was in Saudi Arabia in the 80s, I would say, Al, what struck me most about the Arab culture was the hospitality. Because we, you know, from a Western point of view, we think of all the Arab, especially the Gulf Arab countries, as being just so, you know, war torn and super conservative, and, you know, oil and money and so forth. But as a teacher, I was able to get up close and personal with the Saudi women. I taught women there, and they were so hospitable, just the nicest people on earth. So nothing, you know, people all over the world, I think, are on an individual level are just, you know, good people. And it's just unfortunate that these countries get this, you know, because of politics, get this, you know, reputation for, you know, insularity and, just antagonism toward the rest of the world. But the people are people, and they're as nice as they can be there.
Nice. So Rebecca, I really appreciate that your personal attachment is to these last photos. My personal attachment is to the first ones. The sort of street photography ones.
Yeah.
Probably because that's the kind of thing that I like to do. But what it brought home to me was a glimpse of a very complex, very involved, very vibrant culture that we know zip about, and that we have this huge, as a culture, and as an American culture, we have this perception or this picture of what it's like, but it doesn't correlate very well at all with what you show us in these photographs.
Yes, so thank you. It was interesting. So for example, in this photograph, those women are dancers from Yemen. They're not Qatari women. The women that are standing and taking photos on the left-hand side are. So they would also bring in, a lot of, for these cultural events that they would do, they would bring in people from different countries versus performing themselves. And the family is kind of tight knit in that way. So again, these are mostly people. The two men on the right hand side are Qatari. You can tell because they have the thobes on, which only Qatari men can wear those. And that's what they wear at all their business meetings. When we'd fly back and forth, they would have, you know, when we'd get on the plane in Portland, they'd have their denims and their sneakers and all of that on, but this is what they would wear when they would get off the plane from then on. And so the women here are actually, they would be a dancing troupe that they brought in from Yemen to perform, so.
Thanks, Rebecca, very
Sure.
much. Well
I
done.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So there we go. And then Susan DeWitt. It's hard for me to introduce Susan because she's my best friend, but she's a terrific photographer that I've known for maybe 10 years now. Does that sound about right, Susan? She moved to Portland and we met and we became good friends. And I've watched her go through a couple of different process phases, and we're going to get a treat today because I think we're going to see some of her early work and some of her latest work. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right on. Well, welcome everybody to Susan DeWitt, and I'm going to have you do your screen and show us your work.
Thank you, Ray. So let's see. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. And there we go. Is that what we wanted?
Yeah, I
Not
think if you
quite.
press play, we'll be good to go.
Oh, that's it. I've never done this before. Okay. There we go.
Perfect.
And I'm going to be reading from a script. And here we go. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for sitting in to hear about my photography and how it's evolved over the past many years. I'd love to thank Pat Rose for her kind invitation and to Ray Bittigan for all his patience and assistance. I truly appreciate it. And so to get right to it, it was about 22 years ago that I became seriously interested in photography. At the time, I was living in Seattle, Washington, and was thrilled to discover that there was a great school of photography in the city called the Photographic Center Northwest. I immediately signed up for their beginning darkroom class, and there it was. I was hooked, but I knew absolutely nothing at all about the famous photographers of the world, contemporary or historical, or how photography had evolved. So I spent the next 4 years taking pretty much every class that they offered. Within a few months, I bought a good film camera, a Contax medium format, the same one that my new photography friend Lindsay did. We spent all of our time learning the ins and outs of that camera, using every setting in tandem, developing the film, studying our results, understanding what it had to offer. We took lots of road trips together and photographed everything in sight. We spent endless hours each week in the school darkroom, comparing notes, comparing images that we had taken that very same day. And from these very early days in my photographic life, I found that I love to experiment. One of the first pictures that I took in my color class at school was of my new friend, Lindsay. And when I show you that picture, you will see how I used part of that color image at the beginning as the beginning of a lift print and altered it quite drastically. In 2002, I heard that Mary Ellen Mark was offering a 10-day workshop in Oaxaca, Mexico. I had never been to Mexico. I certainly didn't speak the language, but I decided I would try to go. And although I was a novice, I was ultimately accepted into that workshop. So I was thrilled. Of course, traveling by myself to a different country was a bit scary for me. When the taxi dropped me off at my hotel, it was late at night and I saw no hotel. I got very confused, got out of the car and left behind all my gear. Thankfully, the driver came running after me and pointed out where I should go to get to my hotel, and he gave me all my luggage. I was happy to have made it to the right place, and I slept well that night. I had arrived. It turns out the hotel was right on the Zocalo, the lovely main square within the city of Oaxaca. There were jacaranda trees all in bloom and lots of places to sit beneath those trees and talk to other people. At the first meeting with Mary Ellen the following morning, we were all assigned a project that she wanted us to work on for the next 9 days. Mine was to go to a care home called the Asilo Municipal de Santa Rosa. I have to say I wasn't thrilled with this assignment, but Mary Ellen was firm with what she handed out to us. The asilo housed 66 residents, both male and female, in shared living quarters, each of who had been living on the streets or had no income at all to support themselves. I heard that there was always a long waiting list to live there. While the facility provided a clean and safe place to live, I found it a rather sad existence for many of the residents. Each day I would go there for the whole day, able to wander at will and take photos of the people there if they were willing. During the day, from early morning till later in the evening, they would all sit outside in the enclosed courtyard, often dressed in hats and sweaters, even though the weather was hot. I found they mostly didn't interact with each other, but were just positioned there for the day, often in wheelchairs. Many people just slept. The food situation was very sparse, as I noticed in the kitchen. So I would bring chickens and fruits and vegetables sometimes to add to their menu. I found, despite their situation, that most all of the residents had a lot of dignity, and that taught me a lot about their pride and their strength. I was mostly accepted there to take as many pictures as I wanted, and you can see a few of them here. Oh, this guy, the cowboy. All of the people there shared the one clothing closet, and every week they would wear their clothes for 1 week, and the following week they would trade in those clothes to be washed, and they would choose something else. Sometimes they didn't fit all that well. This woman would pick up twigs in the morning, and she'd sit and break the twigs into tiny little pieces all day. This man had a bad back, and so he would often get out of his chair and lay on the ground. It was hard to take pictures so many times because half of their body was in the shade and half was in the sun. But I liked the halo effect around this woman with the hood. And this man would stand at the gate all day and just look out. This lovely lady had her own bedroom. She had enough money to do that. And she was legally blind. And she always invited me in. And this was quite a young man who had lost his leg in an accident. And it was siesta time. And he allowed me to come in. And my back is pressed against the wall. My camera, I had the wrong lens. I could barely fit everything in that I wanted. Here's a good example of the clothing closet gone wrong. It's just find what you can and wear it. Everything was clean. This lady was a housekeeper. And this lady was a mother of 12, so I questioned why she was there. To myself, I didn't ask her. I didn't speak any Spanish at all. And so very few people that I could talk to understood a word I was saying. And this man would spin in circles all day, just turn around and turn around and turn around. It was Valentine's Day. You can see the heart in the middle of the picture, the decoration. Back at my hotel, I was having a siesta and I heard this lovely music, and I was on the 4th floor and I looked down and saw this man playing this gorgeous song. So I raced downstairs and gave him 50 pesos, and he immediately packed everything up and left. I think he was very happy to get a tip. And I would take the bus out to lots of villages. And so this is the Colectivo where the buses come and go. And I wasn't too sure about this guy in the middle. I don't think he liked me. But I did like the Bert and Ernie socks on the fellow on the right. So. And a friend and I were walking all around Oaxaca, and this lady invited us in. She lived there with her cat. And this was at one of the animal sales. Once a month, there's an animal sale in one of the villages. And this woman had just dragged this giant pig off the back of her truck. Another village was having some sort of a festival. I don't know what he was supposed to be. Scary guy. And it looked like these people lived in the woods. She is cooking over an open fire, making tortillas. And there's a man and 4 children in that picture. So I spent many years traveling in Mexico after that first visit to Oaxaca. San Miguel de Allende became my go-to destination for years. What a beautiful place. I would spend a full month there each time and would take side trips with my wonderful driver to many of the other parts of Mexico. I saw so much that I loved, the people, the food. There was beauty everywhere. One day in San Miguel, a Mexican circus came to town. I asked and they approved. They allowed me to take as many pictures as I wanted. I honestly don't think many places in the world are so open and free to allow this kind of access to just another photographer. Unfortunately, I only have 4 pictures to show you because I could not find my other pictures. This contortionist was the reason that I was accepted to go in. The tent was dark. She turned the generators on and she did all of her routine for me. I have lots of pictures of her. And this is Wolf Boy. There are two brothers. They look very similar. And this is a condition I do not know the name of, but they were covered in hair. And he was married to an actual Caucasian woman, and they had a little boy. And neither, I think the condition jumps. So his boy would not get it. He's still online if you wanted to look him up. And these were some aerialists that were going to do the high wire act. One last thing about my love for Mexico is I made some friends there that helped me access certain places I might not have been able to otherwise. One such place was an orphanage in San Miguel, which I went to every year and photographed the girls there. This was a modern and well-run home for these young girls, and the girls were lucky to be there. They clearly adored the nuns who took care of them, and they always loved to have visitors. Some of these shots are here. Some of those shots are here, and you will see one photo of the girls. I taught them to play Ring Around the Rosie, and they played it over and over, falling down and laughing. Well, that's not supposed to be there. That's not supposed to be there. Okay. I missed a paragraph, everybody, so forget that you just saw that. One other annual event in Mexico is, of course, the Day of the Dead in early spring. The Mexican people are so enthusiastic with their costumes, providing me with such an easy way to photograph.
Hang on a second. I'll see if I can get this muted.
There's a good family to all of it. I didn't know everyone's names. I just said teacher. But the dog.
I can't find them, Susan. Sorry, hang on.
It's Angel. It looks like it's Angel.
Oh, is it? Okay. Thanks, Kathleen. Okay.
Okay. The Mexican people are so enthusiastic with their costumes, providing me with such an easy way to photograph the celebration of the life that they love and cherish. So the images I am showing you here from Day of the Dead were all taken after dark in San Miguel. Katrina's smoking is bad for your health. Looks like Little Red Riding Hood, maybe. That was one of my friends there. This is a taxi driver. And a street scene in San Miguel. All the roads are cobblestone. It's really a beautiful place if anybody has not been there. This is a church, a massive church out in Totonilco, about 45 minutes maybe away out of San Miguel. And all the interior is filled with gold. It's just incredible to see. And my friend that just had the coyotes pelt on her head, she and I went to a big church right in San Miguel and asked if we could wander around the church. And we found this, they said yes. And we found this prop room, which I thought was kind of fun. Okay, now we're going to go to the orphanage. So the older girl is comforting the newly arrived girl. Sweet girl showing me her bunk bed. And it was visiting day. So this little boy was visiting his sister. A lot of the families that brought their little girls here did it simply because they had too many mouths to feed and they just couldn't afford it. So they knew they were cared for really well here. And this girl ran away all the time, apparently. She was so sad, as you can see. She wanted to be at home with her family. I felt so bad for this girl. And there's the ring around the rosy girls. Okay, so over the following years, I took numerous workshops. When I saw my first lithe print, I could not believe how beautiful it was. I knew I had to find a way to learn how to do it correctly. I soon heard about Tim Rudman, who is the king of the castle when it comes to lithe printing, and I knew I had to take his workshop. In the following years, I took 3 of his lithe workshops, each one cementing how to make a really good lithe print. That knowledge completely changed how I would proceed. I spent the next maybe 10 years printing all of my work as lithe prints. For those of you unfamiliar with lithe printing, it is a process that can give a gauzy, nostalgic beauty to an otherwise traditional image. Basically, you overexpose your image and then develop it in a very weak developing bath to bring out the delicate beauty of what lithe prints can look like. You need patience to wait out the long time frame necessary to get the detail you want out of your print. But I fell in love. Lithe printing often works best with older darkroom papers because they have cadmium in them. Over time, however, each paper company started eliminating these toxic ingredients from their papers, and thus the lithe results became less exciting. Also, at this time, digital cameras were taking hold, and therefore less people were interested in the darkroom printing and film cameras. Slowly but surely, the scene was changing, and the companies that produced darkroom papers and chemistry had to cut back on production so much that it made it difficult for me to continue with my beloved lithe printing. While I had enough stock to continue for a while, eventually I realized I needed to make a change. That would come soon enough. In 2006, my husband and I built our dream house, something we had always wanted to do. Thanks to countrywide home loans, we, along with everyone else in America, qualified for a mortgage, and off we went. We bought 2.5 acres on Bainbridge Island and proceeded to build that dream home. I finally had my own real darkroom space where I spent every waking hour. This is where I started to really mess around with my original images and change their intended look. See some of them here. So this is Lindsay, and this was my color class that I took with her. And you can see her hat and her sunglasses and her earrings and her collar that sticks up. So I take that part of the image eventually, years later, and made it into a lith
You
print
know where the
like this.
Irish Springs are, like the parcels?
So we have her hat and her sunglasses and her collar. And this paper is called Slavich. It's a Russian paper, and it's very irregular. It's very difficult to work with, and you either love it or hate it. But for an image like this, I just thought it was perfect. And then I superimposed a doll, cracked doll's face where Lindsay's face would have been. Three or four negatives. This one was, I tore this sheet to make it match the hillside and printed the whole thing as a new negative. And I started using, I don't know what you call it. All you photographers out there would know what it's called. I called it mascoid, but it was red and it was like in a little bottle, and I brush it on and then it would peel off on its own in the developing bath and then the stop bath. And the darkroom was a mess every time I finished doing it, but I would get these really messed up, strange results, which I just loved. So. That's a paper negative, that one. This started as a bowling pin with a hat on it. And then my daughter-in-law, and then egg beaters. So three negatives. Never quite got it right. And this was a fountain in Guadalajara. And as I was doing the exposure, I would turn the dial up and down and make for movement. And I also used that mascoid stuff on this, obviously. And here's a typical graininess you can get from certain papers when you're doing lith printing. Different papers behave completely differently. And these colors, they're not toned, these prints. This is the color you get from certain paper and certain developer combination. And I made that little dress, it's about 2 inches tall. And I superimposed an image of it onto a full-size mannequin. And that's also a paper negative. So there's that Slavich paper again. You can see how bizarre it is, but it works for some images. And there's my niece lying in the bathtub on her back. She was a gymnast, Olympic swimmer, excuse me. And the reflection from the overhead light blackened, it actually was white, so it eliminated the eye on the left that we're looking at, and yet the eye on the right is showing through the glass. And it just surprised me that the doll's face is in front of it. I'm not really not quite sure how I did that. But. I thought these looked like pen and ink, but they're not pen and ink. They're just when I'm printing a negative. in the easel, I will put acrylic that's covered in all sorts of stuff, flour and oil, and scratch it all around, make marks. There's my friend Anita. Anita, you're in the audience here today. That's you.
I love that one.
Yeah.
Because it's me. I just love it.
I sold it in Denmark. I told you. I think. Yeah. And I would get this one gal to make me costumes all the time. And this was this horrible red and white material with giant polka dots. But I've always loved polka dots. And when I messed with it and put that oily, floury thing on top of the thing, it just really altered everything. Just great. So you can see that each paper behaves differently. And when we took Tim Rudman's class, he taught us how to do this copper bleach effect. And I'm not quite sure, I don't remember. You bleach it all the way back, or mostly all the way back, and then you redevelop it in a special copper something developer, I guess. Anyway, you would get some really fun results. And these colors behave naturally. It wasn't anything that I did to make the colors happen. They just happen with the copper bleaching. Okay, unfortunately, at the end of 2009, I experienced a very disturbing event that literally changed my life. I completely stopped doing anything for a year, and I became quite depressed and kept to myself. Eventually, after a long struggle, I knew I had to push myself to get back at it again. I wasn't ready to ask my models to come and do a shoot just yet. So I decided one day to create a model out of found materials. I used all sorts of things: tree branches, soup ladles, padding, gauze, etc. Each figure was about 3 feet tall, and I would create her, photograph her, and then ultimately dismantle her, never to be seen again. I will start out by showing you an example of the handmade figure, followed by a few lithe prints that I made of her. This new small body of work, which I ultimately called Coming from Darkness, got me excited again about working on new projects. So there's 2 angles of the same figure that I made. The soup ladle is her head, upside down soup ladle. Lots of gauze, lots of padding, and branches. And my husband made sure it stood still by putting it on to a board. So if you go back, this one on the left is basically that.
Interesting.
Susan, are you still working with that paper that you had stashed?
No, I don't have a darkroom anymore.
I mean, these images that you just showed.
These ones?
Yeah, these ones.
And I'm not You mean, am I still making
No,
things with
I
paper?
was just, no, I was wondering if these images that you just showed, the recovery series,
Uh-huh.
are they made with that paper that you mentioned that you talked about earlier?
No, that's coming up.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Okay, in time, we decided to sell our house on Bainbridge and we moved to Portland, Oregon, where 2 of our boys already lived. I found Portland to be full of all the best people, photographers galore. New Space was going strong and I met so many new friends there. Ray was one of the very first people I met, and he was kind enough to include me in so many photographic events. I felt very lucky to have met so many photographers that way. Portland became home to me. So I soon set up another small darkroom here and started making work again. The first project I worked on here was called Stark, a body of work that I made using a very old darkroom paper from the 70s. It surely had cadmium in it and maybe some other things, but it gave me a look to these stark pictures that I was not able to get using any other type of paper. It was quite something. I had been gifted a whole lot of this paper by a Seattle friend who had closed up her darkroom for good. It was Berger paper, Bergger. Of all the paper she gave me, only one small batch of this Berger paper produced these amazing results. And I have no idea why it behaved that way, but I am thankful for it. I could take these same negatives, regular negatives, and print them on any other type of paper and any other Berger paper, and they wouldn't look like they do here. I call it stark because they're basically black and white with very little detail in between. And if I can show you in person prints that I make the same exact negative on a different paper, and you get all the detail. So I just love the way these turned out, and I have no idea why. There's Billy. Ophelia. A lot of you might recognize some of these names, models I met from Portland. Billy and Kari. And here are some more normal lift prints, many of them taken in Seattle and many after moving to Portland. Mary Ellen, 2 of her friends came to my house one day. I had not met them, and they brought suitcases full of the most amazing clothes and hats and props. And we just photographed ourselves all day long. We had so much fun. So we did that numerous times. It was great. I made a paper hat series and I made the hats too big. So I was glad I did. I just left them that way. I didn't mean to make them too big. But I did. That's my niece, the swimmer. And the giraffe costume, I got that lady to make. Just great. Kari, of course. This house where these were, this one was photographed, this girl was a friend of Barb and, I forget, Ray, help me out. It doesn't matter.
Barb
It
and
was a
Steve
friend-
Blair.
Yeah, Barb Blair. And so Barb asked me if I'd like to use the house with all the props in it to photograph these models. She had endless things to photograph, all these clothes. It was just incredible. So we spent a lot of time there. And this was at the North Star Ballroom, which has now changed its name and got a new owner, but I used to photograph there a lot. And it was just all these rooms and it was fabulous.
So what is the difference? Some of these images are in focus and some aren't. Is that a function of the way you developed or the paper?
It's my printing style and my shooting style. I'll shoot a lot through diffusion. So that enhances the grain. And then it depends on the paper too. The paper makes a huge difference. Like the Slavich paper is very grainy all on its own. Paper negative. And another. And another. Okay, I experimented a tiny bit with platinum palladium printing. It was a short-lived event, but I do love the look of a well-made platinum print. I have a few here. Some are better than others. This was in the North Star Ballroom. And my youngest son, girlfriend at the time, was going to fashion school, fashion design, and she asked the teacher if I could come and take pictures of all the mannequins. And so I spent 2 days there, probably 50 or 60 mannequins. I was pushing them all around. That was great to have that access. These ruins, it must have been a fairly wealthy town at some point because the buildings are beautiful, but all the roofs are gone and just the walls are standing now. So this is outside of San Miguel. Okay, and so here we are today, and I have given away my darkroom equipment and replaced that with intaglio printmaking equipment. I've set up my own printmaking studio here at home, and I'm thrilled to have this new direction. It's still photography, but now it's being shown as polymer photogravures. I'm still learning, I'm still experimenting and trying things out. For example, I love using multiple plates to produce one final image. I will print on wallpaper, Japanese paper, watercolor paper, etc. Once again, I have found a way of being experimental with this new direction. So here's Ursula in profile. And of course, now I'm wanting to do some experimenting. So I cover her with print on chincolle, which is this really technique where you print your plate onto a thin piece, it's usually a thin piece of paper, and then that is automatically attached to your base paper. But I used this white paper, which had these thick stripes to it. It really wasn't a very good choice, but I took it from there. I quite liked it and made her into a butterfly. So I just sort of done a 3-step thing to make it a little more fun. And what I do a lot of now is I will separate, if you have an image of a girl, say, in the background and whatever, and then you go into Photoshop and you separate, make sure your image is black and white, and you separate it into tonalities. So the darkest of darks and the lightest of lights with all the grays and grades of grays in between. And you separate them all and make separate plates out of each one. So this is one plate. This is the blackest black. And all the rest detail I'm not printing. So I really like doing this. This is really fun for me. And then I put a little piece of Chincolet red hair on her. So I did a lot of this. This will show you that more of the girl, there's the black, and you can, they don't have to be all black and gray. They can be any color you want now because you're inking up the plates. So I made the dress black, and there's green and there's gray. So these are 3 of the plates. Each color is a separate plate. And of course you have to register them to make them line up properly. My new daughter-in-law, and she wanted me to take pictures with her in her grandmother's clothes. And this is just one of the outfits, very fancy outfit. The bird and the branch are a piece of Chincolet. Excuse me. So there's Kari's white cap again, except this time I separated it and misaligned it, if that's a word. Took it a little bit out of registration so that it looks like you need Vicene and clarity. The same for this one. The girl is got the red hair and she's sitting on a stool and there's a red shadow at the back. But you can imagine the part of her, the back and the arm, are missing in this because I didn't include. So I didn't include those plates. So all of the white areas, or the white areas, not quite white, but it's white, are parts of plates that I didn't use. And then the blue, I made plates of leaves, and those are one portion of the leaves, not the whole leaves. And this is the same thing. The white part, I didn't make a plate for, or I didn't use that plate to make that. Same with this. This was a mannequin in a window in Paris, and I only used 2 plates. I could have used 5 to complete the image. There's Ted Mishima, you might recognize him. And this is done using a technique called a la poupée, where you ink up your plate by hand with little daubers, and then you wipe it selectively. It's just another way to ink instead of inking the whole plate all at once. And this is an example of a piece of, your print is the angel, and it's printed on a Japanese piece of paper, the brown paper, and that is adhered to the wallpaper. So that goes through the press all at once. Same thing, wallpaper behind, chine-collé on the two faces. And this is actually printed directly onto a piece of wallpaper. So here's an example of a shot I took in Paris, another window. And you can see how busy it is and all the reflections and everything. And then you can ink, you separate all the colors, you make it black and white, you separate all your tones, and then you can ink up whatever colors you want. So that's a crazy example of what I did with that. It was crazy busy, but I'm just trying to get you to understand how it's done. I like, during COVID, I liked freezing flower petals and letting them start to melt and then photographing them. Okay. Lastly, my isolated life during the 2 years of COVID really took away a lot of my drive. It affected me and it took me a long time to get going again. But I'm happy to say that I am now doing new things again. I have taken things a step further away from using photographs as my starting point. And I am mostly creating art from shapes, and I find myself heading into a more abstract direction for the time being anyway. I said before, I love polka dots, which I do. So this is actually a giant print. And these to me were COVID people. This person here doesn't have COVID, as you can see. And this person does, as you can see. And that one. Everything was made from circles. Those wings are circles that I've just cut and placed in different areas, directions. And then I'm just getting more abstract and just doing, this is done a la coupe. Each of the 6 lined squares are inked separately by hand. And that was a 4 or 5 plate flower separation. So this is 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 colors, 4 plates. And this is with squiggles. I just dropped squiggles onto the plate that I had already inked up and wiped. And this is the final image, and it just shows you that you can take that a little bit further and use many plates. So there's orange, there's four colors there. And that's it. That's where I am today. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. You got time for a lot of questions?
Sure. I don't know if we have time, do we?
Do we have a lot of questions?
I certainly have a question. Susan, I just don't know where to start.
Who is this, Pat?
Sorry?
Is this Pat?
Yeah, Pat, this is Pat Rose. Hi, Susan. Thank you so much first for agreeing to speak to us. I've just been a long time admirer of your work, and I've just never seen it all in one place so nicely presented as you did today. So wonderful, wonderful job.
Susan, this is Giannis, and I have a question kind of following up on what Pat just said. It's like, God, I just admire like your experimentation. I mean, you're trying this and you're trying that, and it's like, and I'm kind of wondering, as you are trying these things, like what percentage of the work that you produce, say, like you produce a body of work, say over a couple days or a week, and then you look at them back in a month, what percentage are you still excited about, like the images that you create in that whatever period, day, week, month?
Well, I've thrown a lot of images out over my lifetime, but the ones that I've shown you today are pretty much some of my favorite images. I like to experiment. I think that's clear, but I had a mother that was very experiment. She would try all sorts of things. And, it was just instilled in me, I think, from the beginning. But the question is, do I still keep them? Do I still like them as much as I did then? I have to say I do.
Nice.
Yeah.
I guess the question is like, you know, like you produce, let's say you produce like 10 images. And after you look at those 10 images, after a month, is like, what percentage would you say that are keepers after, say, a month or after a period of time when they kind of mature, or like there's like that glow of time over them?
Sure. I think for me anyway, I tend to keep the ones that I like at the time, and then I'll put them in a box or I'll put them in a drawer or whatever. And then I might not go back to that drawer for years. And then I'll really know that's a horrible print, or that's better than I thought it was, you know. So I think that's the way it would happen for all of us. I don't know. I think your mind needs time to simmer a bit on images and see if you still like them later.
It sounds to me like the Blue People of Manzanita.
The what?
Came out, do you remember that?
The what? Evan, is that you?
When you
That's
painted
me.
everybody's face.
It's
Yeah,
the PPF trip we took to Manzanita. You were
Oh.
there. In fact, you
Oh,
were,
great.
I guess learning so much about you right now makes that part of the evening very special.
Yeah, that's not so weird. Well, it was weird.
No.
We took a trip, a whole bunch of us photographers years ago, and I made all these poor subjects, Evan being one of them, Ray being one of them. They let me paint their faces with, I don't even know what it was, blue paint, right?
Blue, yeah.
And then take funny pictures of you, yeah.
Hey, Susan, I think Angel has her hand up. What, you got a question, Angel? You have to unmute.
Yeah, Susan, so gosh, this has been wonderful. I mean, I've known you for years, but I feel like I know you so much better now. So I'm curious to you know, that as your work has evolved over time and you've, you know, gone through several different major changes in your process and the materials that you use, I'm just curious how you've seen that the material change or the process change has changed the way that you approach photography, or if it hasn't.
I have to honestly say that I'm taking, the older I get, the less pictures I'm taking. I used to expend so much energy with my photo shoots with the girls. I would go crazy for days and days and get everything ready, and it just exhausted me. And the older I get, the more I just don't have that energy in me anymore. And I wish I did, because I still have ideas, but I just don't feel that I can keep doing that. So in a way, I know I'm using a lot of my older images at this time for intaglio printing, but I'm also serious about heading into a more abstract direction, and I'm quite enjoying it. So I don't know if I'll keep doing it, but it's the energy thing that made me slow down, and COVID, you know, did that to all of us. So whether I get my full energy back again, I don't know if I will, but Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that works. Thank you.
Okay.
Susan, one more question for you. So I noticed your career is very interesting. You went from almost, stark realism and then you transitioned into your Lith era. A lot of that was all the sort of gauzy pictorialist kind of throwback stuff, which is my favorite era of yours. And then now to this almost hyper abstract kind of, progression. So is there, is that a fair assessment? And why do you think it's working out that way?
Beats me, Pat. I don't know. I think being home for the past 2 years, with my husband, is enough to drive anybody around the bend. No,
Cool.
it's just, it's been hard on me. It's hard on all of us, I know, but not being able to photograph my lovely models, I just sort of have segued into that and liked it. And so it was kind of a surprise. And I don't know if I'll stay doing it, but I'll do some of it. I also like to draw and just draw these crazy things and print those. I print a lot of those. Yeah.
And one quick, quick question and I will shut up, I promise. So since you're sort of, with your models, that's sort of characterize it as sort of your pictorialist era. Did you collaborate with your models to create those very creative scenes or did you have all these million ideas and just sort of?
I think we all had ideas. I mean, yeah, and they were fantastic. I mean, Billy and Kari and Ophelia, and they would all just bring these clothes and outfits, and we'd spend like all day just dressing in different things. And it was just more fun than anything. It was fun, and it took a lot of energy. But like the one here, let's say, of Kari waiting for Mr. Right, that's at the ballroom, the North Star Ballroom. She brought this dress. She has amazing clothes. And we would just, and I had bought that hat, and we would just, I don't know, this was a funny story. For this shoot, I used this big roll of plastic as my diffusion, and I left it in the car overnight because I packed the car late at night so that it would be ready for the 2 o'clock shoot the next day. And when I went to unroll it, it had marks all over it. It had all worked. But that's what those lines are, which almost looks like writing. But I was happy with that. It was a good result. But yeah, definitely we collaborated.
Susan, how do you transition your tonal separation to a printing process? I mean, you said you did it in Photoshop.
Yeah, well, to separate your images into tonalities, which is, it's not like CMYK, it's not that. So that's something I would have to sit down and show someone how to do, because I have a list this long of how to do it.
It's simply what I'm really getting at is you do it in Photoshop, but then how do you get that to be able to print it?
Oh, I see. Then you print your each separation you print onto Pictorico, and then your Pictorico is used to make your plate, each separate plate. So you make sure that your plates are all exactly the same size, the Pictoricos are all exactly the same size, so that they will register properly.
Thanks.
So briefly, I just want to say briefly that I realize it's 9 o'clock and the meeting's supposed to be over at 9, and you're all welcome to go if you want to, but we're going to hang around and take some more questions. That's not a problem, but thank you all for coming. Those of you who want to go home, and we'll talk again next month. But Susan, keep taking questions for as long as you feel like it.
Susan, I have a question.
Rebecca.
Well, I am just always amazed about the depth of your work and your relationship to it. But also what I am just stand in awe of is your ability to title these images. They are, they just somehow in so many images that just completes them in so many ways. It brings in your sense of humor, which is so obvious in so many of the images, your sense of wonder. And can you talk a little bit about how you go through the titling process or some of the challenges that you do have with that?
Well, I love often to give them titles. And I do think it, like, I don't want to do it with all of them, but it's like the one with the, I'm looking for it, the roller skater. I just love that name for that. And I didn't think of that until, come on, where are you? Sorry to be so slow here.
While you're looking, I'll confess that I've often reached out to Susan for titles for my pictures too.
Yeah, I don't know. I see things differently. I think that's obvious. I'm a little nutty.
One of my favorites of yours, Susan, is Ode to a Mouse.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that one too. I don't know. They just come to me like literally in the night. I'll just think, oh, that's what I'm going to name that, So, like I've had this picture roller skater for 10 years. And I never knew what to call it. And this morning I looked at it and I said, he's roller skating. so it's just like something will come to me.
Could I see Ode to a Mouse again? I just love that.
Oh, sure. Okay, so that would be. There's just too many pictures here.
For a second, I want to point out that have a catalog of 200 plus pictures is really a testament to your hard work, Susan.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I mean, I've just absolutely loved doing this for as long as I've done it. We're getting closer here. Come on, mouse.
And while you're looking for it, Susan, this is Julie. I just want to say how, oh, you found it. Never mind. Go ahead.
Such a clever title.
Yeah.
I give all the credit to my models because they would just do things. And, I think she just jumped up on the chair and then the title came to me much later. I don't know. We just had so much fun. Julie, yes?
Yes. I just wanted to say, Susan, how impressed I am with all of your creativity and how you have moved from one segment of your work and your art to the next one, each one of them being equally exquisite and yet different. You can see the flow. And it was so wonderful to see tonight that transition through your work life. So kudos. It was amazing, and you are amazing.
Oh, thanks, Julie. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Anybody else? Questions? Come on.
A quick one.
Yeah, go, Peter.
Susan, I just wanted to say what I admire about your process is that sometimes you run into a mistake or something that's unexpected and you just keep pushing it in another direction. And it often ends up in creating a really very different and amazing image. I think not being afraid to make a mistake is a very important thing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's just, trying to see what things will do. It's like adding that masquerade. If anybody knows what that's called, you can tell me now. But it's like the darkroom was just a mess, but I really like to see that messy result that would just peel off afterwards. And I don't know, it was just, I did it for, I don't know, a month, and then it was something I didn't want to ever do again because it was so messy. But
Was it called Frisket?
That's it.
It might- It's
Frisket.
kind of like a frisket, yeah.
It is
So
a
it's-
Frisket.
It is? And so is it masquerade as well?
That's probably a brand name.
Okay, all right. Uh-huh,
It's a resist, you know.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Anybody else? Well, Susan, I mean, I just want to congratulate you on obviously a grand and extensive body of work that shows off your journey in a really beautiful way.
Thank you so much, Ray. Thank you and Pat for having me.
Yeah, I mean, it's enjoyable. We'd like to see lots of pictures. I mean, I do at least. So well done.
Thank you, thank you. I hope I didn't put too many in there.
No, not at all. And thank you all for coming tonight. We'll see you
Yeah.
again in a month. Hopefully we'll see you on the 1st at the Multnomah Art Center showing some prints. I'd love to see you all there. And we'll call it good night. Thank you.
Night, everybody. Thank you
Thank you.
for.
Thank you,
coming
Susan.
in.
Wonderful,
Susan.
Susan.
Night. Thanks, Susan.
Good night, good night, good
Bye.
night.